and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your NASCAR betting and DFS home. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to break down the DraftKings lineups, update our betting card, and get you all set for the Homestead-Miami race this week as the NASCAR playoffs roll along. It's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? Yeah, I'm excited to have my favorite adult beverage in hand for this race. Some nice vodka and a little bit of tonic. The Dixie Vodka 400 coming up tomorrow. Qualifying was pretty interesting. It was pretty awesome to see JHN, John Hunter Nemechek, running in Bubba Wallace's car, actually have like the fastest practice time, the fastest qualifying time in his group. It'll be interesting to see what he's able to do come race time, though, being this is his first race in the next gen car. But I'm excited to dive in and hopefully win some money this week.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the 45 looked good last week. It was really fast before the accident. Obviously, Bubba's suspended for the week for the carnage that ensued after the bumping. But yeah, we are here. We're going to build a DraftKings lineup or two. We're going to actually be able to enter them as we are no longer in Vegas. We will update our betting card, and then we will get the hell out of here. So without further ado, Brian, let's take a look at the pricing. Let me blow this up just a little bit more. How's that? Is it too big or is that okay?
No, that looks really good.
Cool. So we have Tyler Reddick, your betting favorite, has looked amazing. Big fan of this week, starting 7th at 10,900. Right behind him, Kyle Larson at 10.8. Denny Hamlin didn't qualify on the pole like we thought he might, but still looked okay. Starting 14th at 10.6. Chase Elliott had an actually good qualifying. I think, after last week, I think he frustrated a lot of people, but had a nice bounce back this week at 10.4. And then Kyle Busch at 11th at 10K, and Ryan Blaney at 10.2, starting 13th, round out the 10K range. If we're looking at this, area, obviously we have a couple dominator potentials. We have a couple guys who not necessarily starting right near the front, but could easily get there pretty quickly. What are your initial leans, and who do you want to target from this range?
I mean, obviously for me coming into this weekend, Denny Hamlin was one of my favorites. You'll see in our betting card, he was one of the two outrights I had placed before practice and qualifying. I'm still really high on him, just knowing his history here. He's he has the most career wins in 3 among active drivers at Homestead. He's been incredible during the playoffs, finishing top 5, I think, in like 5 of the 7 races or something of that nature. So I think Hamlin starting 14th is probably going to be my favorite guy from this group. However, his roster percentage is probably also going to be the highest among all of these guys.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Obviously, he has all the success, so he will be very, very popular. But Ryan Blaney starting 13th and Kyle Busch starting 11th they're all kind of in that same basket and all within a few $100s. I could see people, being like, oh, I need to squeeze in some other options. Let me drop down, save a couple $100, go to Blaney at 10.2 or even Kyle Busch at 10K, and using that to be able to get, who their 5th or 6th driver in at a little more of a comfortable spot. So could be an interesting way to go. It could also be an interesting way to, if you want to, take a couple of those guys starting in the teens and just kind of avoid the potential dominator options. Of the dominator options, Reddick, Larson, and Elliott, rank them 1, 2, and 3 for me in terms of your interest in them potentially this week.
Without factoring in cost, I mean, I have Hamlin over him in a matchup, but I think Tyler Reddick is probably the number 1 guy for that group. It was interesting to see him do an interview after running his practice laps and basically admitting that he was not full go on the track, and he was still one of the best cars on track. So he has a little bit extra. He's going to be riding the wall within about an inch or even possibly scraping the wall the entire race. So I think Reddick is somebody to keep in mind pretty much all across the board, betting and especially DFS. And then I'd probably go Elliott, just knowing he's he's been able to stay on track more consistently than Kyle
Yeah.
Larson. Like, I don't know. Larson just keeps running into issues. So yeah, Larson would be the third guy for me.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think Reddick is going to be interesting in terms of his roster percentage because he's definitely the most expensive. And yeah, he looked good. And I'm with you. I think he will be even better on Sunday than maybe the qualifying order says. So he would be actually one of my favorites from this group. But I love to pair him either with Ryan Blaney or Kyle Busch and kind of see how that goes.
Well, and then real quick, I just checked over with our buddy iFantasy Race, looking at the practice lap averages, and Tyler Reddick was the fastest car on track for 15, 20, and 25 lap and 30 lap averages during practice. Like, this guy knows this track. He loves this track. He's definitely not somebody to skate over when you're looking at the board.
And we talked about how fast he looked in Vegas, another intermediate track this week. I like him quite a bit. The next range is really interesting. Some potential movers, some potential dominators. We start with Joey Logano, last week's winner. Really, I think he's going to be really, really popular this week. Sub 10K, starting 17th. He has a great track record at this track. Could obviously coming off the win, he should be really, really strong again. Ross Chastain, a guy that we both liked last week, a guy that we were both interested in this week, starting 20th at 9,600, is going to be really easy to get to. Martin Truex starting 12th at 9,400 has actually been a lot better at this track, and I think there's a good chance he gets a win down the stretch. Where he gets it, I'm not exactly sure, but this could easily be one of the spots, and I think he might be a little slept on just because of starting a little closer to the front. Hasn't had the strong season that we think he should, but 9,400 starting 12th could be interesting. And then we have the guys starting 1 and 2 in William Byron and Christopher Bell at 9,200 and 9K even. Obviously, if you skip the 10K range from the kind of front runners, Byron, Bell make a lot of sense as potential early dominators. And then obviously Chastain, Logano, and Busch as guys who could move up and get there pretty quickly. What are your thoughts on kind of the 9K range as a whole, and which names are jumping out to you the most?
Well, for me, the other guy I have on an outright, and somebody you were really high on last week, and he almost got there. That's Chastain starting 20th. Sometimes, guys, they miss their groove during their qualifying lap, but during practice, Chastain was extremely fast over the long run. I think we're going to see that again on Sunday. And then I can't help but just gravitate towards Christopher Bell starting second at 9K. Like, if you want to skip over all those 10K guys, you could just mash in Chastain and Bell, or even a Truex and a Bell, and just go from there, knowing you have two really strong drivers that are going to compete for a win potentially here.
Yeah, I think skipping the 10K range and mashing in 3 9K guys could make a lot of sense as well. Like, you could go Logano, Chastain, and then Byron or Bell, whoever your favorite kind of early dominator is, and build a really strong lineup from there and kind of cut off this whole group, which a lot of people I think will gravitate towards. Maybe not all of them, but they'll try and find 1 or 2 of those guys in their lineup. We'll dive into the 8K range where we have some interesting names. We'll have Kevin Harvick starting 16th at 8,800. Chase Briscoe, a guy that I'm kind of on a little bit this week, starting 19th, 8,500. Looked pretty solid last week, ended up having a strong finish. Daniel Suarez starting 23rd. Noah Gragson rounds it out at 8,100, starting 24th. Any names in the 8K range that you're gravitating towards? Obviously, our guy Eric Jones. Actually, he's the next range. Never mind. But Gragson, Suarez, Briscoe. These are some guys that, starting a little bit further back, you get the movement points, you get the potential fast laps, and could be interesting options.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier in the week. I think Chase Briscoe is a guy who really showed his skill level and what he can do when he doesn't wreck last week in Vegas. And I mean, with this being similar size track, maybe not necessarily the race type or the track type when regards to tire wear, I think Briscoe's a guy that could pop tomorrow, potentially get a top 10. I think he makes a lot of sense at 8,500. And then, we talked about the Trackhouse guys. Both of us are kind of big Ross Chastain fans, and Daniel Suarez as well. He ran really well last week in Vegas. He's somebody who, when Trackhouse is all together and like they're rolling, they're a team that could place potentially both cars inside the top 10. And I think Suarez is somebody that could sneak up on people.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. We'll dive into the next range, which I think is going to have some really fun names to potentially target. Looking up a number really quick just to have some more information, but we'll start with Eric Jones, who, as our guy I Fantasy Race points out, has been awesome at high wear intermediates this year. Won the second Darlington race, was third at Auto Club with the best total speed ranking, best average running position, and best driver rating. And then at Darlington 1, he was a top 10 contender. He was sitting in 8th, stage 1, 6th in stage 2. But then ended up crashing and not ended up finishing that race. So kind of threw off his numbers, but has been really good. And you were on him. I actually added to the betting card prior to qualifying. We'll review that here in a second, but he is somebody that I feel like both of us are going to be happy to pencil in this week at 7,900, starting 22nd. Austin Cindric starting at 26th. 7,700 could also make a ton of sense. A lot of movement points. He's been pretty strong at intermediates. And then as we round out the 7K range, we have Dinger starting 10th. We have McDowell starting 18th. We have your guy Austin Dillon starting 32nd at 7,200. He could move up. He could make some differences. He could, even if you get a top 15, some fast laps, you could, maybe win with the pit cycle, ends up in front for a few laps. Like there's a path to him having a really nice race. And then your buddy Brad Keselowski starting 9th at 7K. Of the 7K range, obviously will be on Eric Jones. Anybody else that you're gravitating towards?
Well, I mean, obviously Austin Dillon, somebody for me who is probably going to be sharpied into lineups for me, starting 32nd.
Mm-hmm.
It's only 7,200. The only issue with him, though, is like if you're really trying to get tricky, I feel like he's going to be a guy this week who has a higher than normal roster percentage with his starting position. And people, if they're really diving into the data, seeing that he's been pretty consistent at Miami, at 1.5s, at high tire wear tracks, like he's going to run in the mid-teens. Basically, like that's kind of his like median at these kinds of tracks. So I mean, you're looking at almost doubling his position from start to finish, and that's going to be huge in lineups. But he may be somebody rostered too much that if you're making a giant GBP lineup, you're going to want to stay away from.
Yeah, you're going to have to pick and choose. You're going to have to, like, you don't want to go Hamlin and Austin Dillon and and all these popular drivers. So you're going to have to go, okay, who's the ones that I really want to make sure I get make a point of getting to, and which are ones that I'm like, I'm okay missing out on them potentially this week. And obviously you can mix and match and use some lineups where you have a couple of the guys and a couple lineups and with the other guys, depending on how many lineups you want to build. We'll slip below the 7K range as we get to Christopher Buescher starting 8th. Eric Almirola starting 28th at 6,700 could be a lot of fun. I'm not letting you Ricky Stenhouse me again this week at 6,500.
Don't worry, I'm not going back there.
Justin Haley starting 15th at 6,300. John Hunter Nemechek, great story, looks fast, starting 4th. I don't know that you can get to him unless you're building 100 lineups and you want to have some difference. What are your thoughts on kind of those 4 names? And, are we using any of them, or are they just pure cross-offs?
I think really the only guy that I would consider putting in a lineup has got to be Almirola. I mean, I love Chris Buescher. He was super nice when we were at the track in Vegas, but I mean, starting 8th, I don't know if it's almost as if he's starting at his ceiling here, especially at this kind of track. There's so many other drivers that are the upper echelon in the sport that are as good, if not like tremendously better than he is here. So I don't know if he could even finish inside the top 10 still. So I think Almirola is really the only guy that is kind of appealing in this range.
Yeah, I agree. It's an easy range to skip over, and honestly, I'd rather spend a little bit more at the top and then kind of jump down and save some money, because I think as we get below 6K, there is a couple names that could make some sense. If you like Nemechek or you like Almirola, I mean, or even Buescher, looking at them like Buescher and Buescher and Nemechek, that makes more sense on kind of a look at the betting card and figure it out there, get a top 10 or something if you want to try and squeeze that. I will say Justin Haley finished 3rd at the Darlington race in May. And qualified well, didn't, finished inside the top 20, kind of very similar to where he's starting this week in the September race. So could be interesting. It could pop up a little bit more than maybe people realize. And if you are being a little chalky, could be a nice way to pivot a little bit. As we dip below 6K, we have Ty Gibbs starting 6th. We have Ty Dillon starting 30th. Cole Custer starting 25th. Harrison Burton 21st. Todd Gilliland 29th. Corey LaJoie, Landon Castle, Cody Ware, BJ McLeod, and JJ Yaley wrap it up. Is there, if we're looking to save salary, is there a name or two that you think, yeah, that could make some sense if you're really trying to pinch pennies?
BJ McLeod starting 35th at $4,600.
Yeah.
If he just does not wreck, I don't care how many laps down he finishes the race. Like if he finishes without crashing, he's probably going to get you like 15 points at minimum. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's kind of a safe play if you're going with that low of a salary.
Yeah, I mean, look
like
at
last week, 18 points. That's great for $4,800.
Yeah. I think, there's some decent numbers in there. There's like a 71, there's a 32, 36.
Well, that was the weird.
So at the 2 Darlington races, let's see, what did he do at the let's see, the cookout. Yeah, the cookout one is the one I want to find.
So he finished 29th and 32nd at the 2 Darlington races this year.
Yeah, he got 19th at cookout, which he started 35th. He finished 29th. He's, you just need to stay on the lead lap. Don't wreck.
Exactly.
Let other people wreck behind you. Like, obviously he's not going to win you a league, but if you are able to squeeze in 5 elite options and then he kind of makes the lineup work, that could make some sense. So with that being said, Brian, let's build a lineup. Maybe 2 if we feel feisty. Who is the first name we have to put in?
I mean, I still think that over the long haul that this guy is going to win the race. I got to go with Denny Hamlin starting 14th.
10-6. I don't hate it. I think it makes sense. All right, I'm going to try and squeeze us a little bit, and we're going to skip the 9K range, and we're going to put Tyler Reddick in. So now we have 7K per driver the rest of the way. Obviously, we can go down into the 6K and find some value. We can go into 7K. Do we just want to pencil in Eric Jones and keep this train moving?
Yeah, I like that call.
Okay. So we need to find a name, maybe 2.
68.6.
I mean, do we want to put BJ McLeod in and see what our last 2 drivers look like, or do we want to try and? Okay. So we have 8,000 for 2 drivers, which I think makes things a lot more comfortable considering of the names that we have squeezed in. So
I feel like, I mean, this is going to be a very chalky lineup, but Dylan starting 32nd, 7,200. That also allows us to move up the board.
It's easy money. I mean, it's easy money. And now we just pivot a little bit. What?
I was just going to say, and then we can go with Briscoe, who both of us are kind of on, or you dive a little bit further down, and Cindric, who he's a guy who he was running well in Las Vegas last week before he had his issues. If he can just freaking keep the damn car straight and not spin himself out, he's gonna finish inside the top 20. I mean, he's that talented. He could potentially sneak a top 10 too at 7,700 starting 26th. I feel like he has the highest ceiling for cost.
Yeah, I mean, that easy money. We smashed it. No problems, no issues. I mean, I don't know what to say. That was one of our easiest lineup builds. I'm sure it'll do horribly and everyone will end up upside down, but nonetheless, I love this lineup. I like where our head's at, and I think it's a good form for, like, you can easily pivot off this if you want to. You could take Tyler Reddick out, and you could take, maybe Cindric out.
You could even take Hamlin out too. Like, you could.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pivoting you could do, but you could go down. Okay, I like Ross Chastain at 9,600. Then you still have 10K to put a Kyle Busch in or put a Joey Logano in. And like, look how much that lineup feels great too.
Yeah.
And maybe this is a little more chalky. And so
What I think is funny about all of these is we're I mean, we're not really hemming and hawing, but of all the guys that is probably least likely to wreck this week, it's probably BJ McLeod because he's going to be a back marker. He's not going to be battling for position. He's just going to run his race. We saw it in Vegas where we were literally joking. He was running his own race that day. He was just putting in hot laps. And that's probably what he's going to do here. So he's the least likely guy to wreck out and not get us points.
And honestly, we have 5,700 if we take him out. So we could easily get up to a Cole Custer starting 25th.
Much higher ceiling than McLeod.
We could get up to a Todd Gilliland starting 29th, LaJoy starting 31st. Like, I feel like these guys could, top 15, top 20s are within the range of outcomes. Custer at the California race started 21st. End up finishing 11th. Let's see, what did he do?
And
he
a lot
started
of people
30th, finished 14th at Darlington in September.
Yeah.
And where are we, Mr. Custer? Started 28th, finished 26th. I think he's the answer.
All right. Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, as we move into the betting aspect of our show, everyone, pretty much almost every single person I've seen on Twitter today, NASCAR Twitter, is all over him in terms of a potential top 10 play. He's like 15-1 or something. I mean, it's a great number. He's just somebody for me that almost every time I've backed him, he's crushed me. So
yeah, I feel like in terms of our potential winning upside with the guys that we're using, and I think like I'd much rather do Cindric and Custer than BJ McLeod and Chase Briscoe. But that being said, if I feel that, then I think a lot of people are gonna feel that. So I think, pushing yourself to a little bit more of a a little more uncomfortability could be an interesting way. If you're trying to win GPPs, if you're just trying to cash, then that's another way. So maybe a little bit of A, a little bit of B. Let's recap our card. Let's get some new bets on here. Let's give a best bet and let's get the hell out of here. So as we sit here today, Joey Logano and Kyle Busch are my outrights, as well as Chase Briscoe at 30-1. Probably done. We'll see how the line has moved on maybe a name or two. Perhaps there will be a watermelon sighting in my betting card. We'll see. I have Kyle Busch over Martin Truex. I have Briscoe over Suarez and Briscoe over Byron.
That was a number play, though.
On a number play. I also have Cindric over Gragson, which, I still like, don't love. I might be able to get a better number. We'll have to see. I have the Briscoe top 10 at plus 125. Obviously, we had Denny Hamlin to win the poll. That did not come to fruition. And after we recorded before qualifying, I think Thursday, we were talking. Where we were talking?
Yeah, I think it was Thursday. We were chatting.
Yeah, on the 21st. So I added this, or actually yesterday, Friday. I added the Eric Jones top 10 at plus 180 for a full unit, and I added a top 5 at 6-1 for half a unit. So that is where we sit as of right now. Brian has Hamlin, Chastain as his only two outrights. He has 3 top 10s with Eric Jones. Austin Dillon is top 10 as his best bet at 3-1. As he has been on a little bit of a groove lately, so he's getting a little feisty, and now Austin Dillon's starting 32nd. So we'll see what that number looks like. Maybe I'll join you if it's priced up right. Briscoe top 10 as well. And then you have Blaney over Logano, Chastain over Logano, Hamlin over Reddick, Briscoe over Suarez, and Briscoe over Byron, as we mentioned, because of the number. Let's look at where we sit now. Let's see if we can't find any additional value as we sit here Saturday afternoon. This will be in your feed Sunday morning for your race action. If you are enjoying what we're doing, if you are enjoying the show, please smash the thumbs up. Please subscribe if you've yet to do so. We really want to get to 500 before the end of the season. And let us know your favorite DraftKings play, sub 8K. Or if you're not playing DraftKings, you're just betting, let us know your favorite top 10 bet this week. Let's jump in. Tyler Reddick is still your favorite at 7.5 to 1. Really compelling. We hate betting favorites around here, Brian, but that number is pretty good for as strong as he's looked. Right behind him, Kyle Larson, 7.5. There's even a 650 at Brett Rivers, which is pretty wild. Your guy Christopher Bell qualifies well, moves up, of course.
Every week.
Every week. We got Denny Hamlin anywhere between 8 and 10. Still a good number. If you can get that 10, I think it's worthwhile for sure.
Yeah, that's a good play.
Byron, solid. Ross Chastain, 10 or 11. Like I love Ross. I'm almost tempted. I think I'd rather add Denny at 10 to 1 than Ross at 10 to 1.
I don't know. Like, he's just so aggressive, and like it ultimately it comes down to, like, for me, like, we're at the stage of the season where guys should really have a good handle on their cars, but I'm really not taking too much into qualifying as much as looking into practice, like lap times over long runs, because qualifying is a single lap. Like I said, you could turn the car too sharp, or you could scrape the wall and it ruins your entire lap, your entire qualifying session. Yep. And a guy like Chastain, whose number did not move, he looked incredible in practice. He was one of the fastest cars late in practice. Like, for the number to still be there at 10 to 1 double digits, I feel like that's great value.
Okay. You don't have to twist my arm to watermelon it up. So my final outright will be Watermelon Man.
I was just going to say, and who doesn't want to have watermelon? Like, watermelon is like the most enjoyable fruit, or I guess it's just a melon. It's not even a fruit, but it's like
fruit.
The most refreshing thing.
If it grows in the ground, it's a fruit. If it grows on a tree, wait, no. Yeah, grows in the ground. If it grows
in the ground, it's a vegetable.
If it grows above the ground, it's a fruit, and if it grows below the ground, it's a vegetable.
Yeah, but a tomato is a vegetable.
No, tomato's a fruit.
Let's just split the difference and call it a vroot.
No, it's a fruit. Look it up.
No, it's definitely a vroot.
It's not, but that's okay. That'll be our show bet of the week. Ryan Blaney at 14 is really fun. I
like the number, but dude, like, what the F? Like, come on.
Yeah, it's been the season from hell from him.
I can't do it anymore.
Logano at 15, I think, is really nice too.
No, F that guy.
Well, I know you don't like him, but it's a good number. Like, I
gotta say, it honestly, like, as much as I was bashing Martin Truex Jr. last week, he's been incredible at Homestead, and I think he looked really good in Vegas last week. I was happy to still get Kyle Busch over him with my best bet, but I think Truex and Busch are two drivers coming into this weekend that could just want to stir the pot a little bit more and compete at the top, and do not give an F who they got to move out of the way for a win.
Especially if you can get that 20 to 1. If you can get 20 to 1 on either guy, I think it's a smash. 18's fine. I'm not touching this Caesar's numbers. Bubba's not running. John Hunter is not running. I think Caesar's is not updated. What does he look at these?
Yeah, I'm actually going to add both those guys at their large numbers.
Briscoe's still hanging around 30. Yeah. I think that's kind of the cutoff point. Like, I wouldn't bet Kozlowski or Suarez. I mean, Cindric is compelling at 50, but I don't know. That's more of a number play than a actually believing it play.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, though, the Reddick number at 7.5 to 1 is still very appealing.
Yeah.
Larson, I have zero interest in going to him just with how he's driven this season.
Yep. Him and Blaney both have been very frustrating for what their, in theory, potential should be.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, so the Christopher Bell top 10 at minus 185. Yes, please. I don't really understand what we're doing here when he should be upwards of the top echelon guys to top 10 at this stage of the season. He should be like 1 to 3. Like, this guy is a top 10 machine.
Yeah. Glad we grabbed Briscoe at plus 125 because now he's minus 105, minus 110. Some nice value there. Cindric to top 10 at plus 155 is kind of interesting.
I wish there were numbers to like not top 10, like John Hunter Nemechek, for instance. We should be able to say no, he's not going to top 10.
Eric Jones top 10s are still sitting out there at 180, which is nice. If you can grab that, I still like it. Christopher Buescher at plus 250. Considering where he's starting is interesting. Dylan's still priced where you got him, so like I don't, he didn't qualify well, but he's still priced. Almirola at plus 350 is also still tempting. I don't know. I'm really trying to not get ahead of my skis this week. I had a nice week last week and bounced back. I'm going to add the Custer 15 to 1. We looked at his numbers. It's a good enough number to jump on.
Well, considering his teammate Briscoe is priced at almost even to do so.
Just adding it for a small play.
Yeah, and I don't think any of the back markers, like this is not a super speedway situation where you're going to get one of those crazy parlays that person won a gazillion dollars on.
Yeah. All right, so Blaney is a slight favorite over Logano. That's probably
as it should
fine.
be.
I don't mind Logano here, to be honest.
Ugh.
I know you don't like him. It's fine. Ross at minus 105 versus Logano is kind of fun. That's what you got him at already, so you're good there. Chase at plus 110 versus Denny is kind of interesting. Reddick minus 115 over Denny is interesting. I added Bush over Truex at minus 115. Now it's plus 100.
Interesting.
Add another unit and see what happens. I'm going to add that at plus 100. Thank you, DraftKings. I will take that. Elliott and Larson, probably fine. Elliott's probably the better bet, to be honest. I know the outright odds don't reflect that, but I think it's right. I think this is funny. And
yeah, that Briscoe over Suarez number moved
yep.
a little bit as well.
Yep. And you can still get plus 155 on Briscoe over Byron at DraftKings if you have access to that book. I would recommend it. Gragson plus 105.
I was just going to say, so that one's going on the card and is something that Kyle and I kind of discussed prior to recording here is this is Nemechek's first time in the next gen car, like in a competitive race, I think. So I'm pretty confident in saying that Gragson's couple races of experience here driving for Hendrick is going to pay dividends as the race gets into the later stages with Nemechek not knowing how this car is going to handle as we get later on in the run. Like, I feel like he's going to run into some problems. He's going to get pushed around by the big boys as we get into like crunch time end of stages. And I think there's a good shot that Nemechek actually DNFs this weekend. Like, I don't want to predict a crash for anybody, but
let's see here. Last week I got a nice little hit with Kyle Busch. Let's see if we can find a nice number to tail this week. Top Chevy Reddick. If honestly, I almost like Reddick as the top Chevy at 4-1 over him to win the race at 7-1, because you could get a third or a fourth, and he could be the top Chevy, and you could cash that ticket.
there.
Are you frozen into oblivion?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, kind of, but that's okay. Let's see here. Blaney top 4 to plus 250. Logano 3-1. Briscoe 7-1 to top 4 is kind of nice.
I was just gonna say, if you really Briscoe, I almost feel like the move is to go with him. Just take a dart throw on him at 7. There's really no value in taking a guy at plus 250 to finish as the top manufacturer when Logano has been running probably more consistently than Blaney. Kevin Harvick's always a threat. Keselowski, there's actually no shot he finishes as the top Ford.
I can't wait until he finishes.
I would be so angry if that actually happens.
BJ McLeod, top Ford at 250 to 1. Top Toyota. Truex at 5 to 1 to top Toyota is kind of nice too.
Or even Bush, 5.5.
Yeah, I'd rather have that.
Like you could just bet both of those guys and almost like split the difference with them and hope that they're both running up front towards the back end of the race, and you're happy either way.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't have any Truex exposure this week.
I added him for a half a unit at that. I added both him and Bush half a unit at that 18 to 1 number just in case.
That's probably smart.
I'm not super high on them, but their history and they're just too good. Like veteran drivers coming in, especially Bush. Last few races with JGR, like I definitely think he's going to try to go off on a high note.
Yep, I agree. We mentioned it, but 30 to 1 on Chase Briscoe. If you think he can win this week, that's a good number to grab. Christopher Bell at 25, I think is a really good number. Especially if you think he can win this week. I'm surprised it's that low.
I think it's just where their standings are.
But if he wins, he's automatically in, right?
Who?
Christopher Bell.
If he wins, like that. Yeah. But that's the situation. Like he's again in the same situation where he almost needs to win in order to get into the championship 4. And I mean,
especially with Logano winning last week, it really locked in like one of the guys that was probably already going to get in anyways.
Exactly. Yeah.
So okay, let's recap our card. Let's give the people best bets. And let's get out of here. So. My card, as it sits right now, I got 4 outrights. Logano at 10, Kyle Busch at 14. You can get better numbers there. Briscoe at 30, and then I added the Chastain at 10 to 1. Head-to-heads, Kyle Busch over Truex. I added it again at plus 100. Briscoe over Suarez. Briscoe over Byron at the 155. My best bet from Wednesday was Cindric over Gragson. I added Briscoe as a top 10 at 125. The poll did not come to fruition for Denny, but that's okay. Eric Jones top 10, Eric Jones top 5. Added the Cole Custer top 10 at 15 to 1 for just a quarter unit, getting it in. Gragson over J.H. Nemechek, plus money. Thank you very much. Chase Briscoe as your top forward at 7 to 1, and Kyle Busch as your top Toyota at plus 550. Brian, break down your card. Give the people a best bet.
So I got 4 outrights this week. I'm sticking with Hamlin and Ross the boss. Hopefully they don't get into another scuffle this race. And then I added the Truex Jr. and Kyle Busch numbers at 18 to 1 for a half a unit each. My top 10 card is pretty light for my history here. Eric Jones, Austin Dillon, my best bet from earlier in the week at 3 to 1. Chase Briscoe, and I added a Christopher Bell to top 10 at minus 185, a number definitely a lot shorter than I normally like, but considering how good this guy's been, I feel like there's still some value there. Matchup-wise, I got Blaney over Logano, Chastain over Logano, Hamlin over Reddick, Briscoe over Suarez, Briscoe over Byron just for the number because I love my guy Willie B. And then the last matchup I added was Noah Gragson over John Hunter Nemechek at plus 105 only because of their qualifying order. And that leads me into my best bet, and it's going to be the last bet I made, and that's Noah Gragson over John Hunter Nemechek at plus 105. Give me the guy with more experience in the next-gen cars all day, every day, especially this week in Miami.
Gragson's not going to finish this race, and we're going to because that's where I was going to lean. I was
oh my god, you got to start taking the lead on these best bets. I stopped stealing yours.
I'm going to go with our guy Eric Jones. You can still get him at almost 2 to 1 to top 10. I will take that with a smile on my face. I am going to pencil that in for a whopping 4 units. Brian's card has not gone well but the past few weeks, but his best bets have been money. My card has been all right, but my best bets have been trash. So I'm fully ready for those best bets not to come to fruition, but to still kind of hopefully tread water. Very excited for this race, though. Let us know once again down in the comments your favorite option below 8K or on DraftKings, or your favorite guy at top 10. Enjoy the Dixie Vodka 400 as the NASCAR playoffs rolls along. That is Brian Twining. I am Kyle Robert. You guys enjoy the race, and we'll talk to you next time.